Do you like testimonies of overcoming? Saved and Strong shares stories of people who have overcome struggles to find strength. Each episode inspires resilience, hope, and faith, reminding listeners they're not alone.
Hello, Saved and Strong audience. This is Carrie Watts, host of the Saved and Strong podcast. Today's podcast is Raising Awareness for Brain Health Awareness Month, which is this month, June. The Alzheimer's Walk is coming up for Mississippi, November 7th. If you're not in Mississippi, go to your local Alzheimer's Association website and find the date for your walk and get involved. My sister and I talk about caring for our mother, Jody Nelson, who had Alzheimer's for 12 years. You'll see my mom and dad's picture behind me. They've both since passed away. My mom passed away of Alzheimer's May of 2025, so a little over a year ago. But my sister and I have been an advocate for the Alzheimer's Association as a volunteer since then. And there's a lot going on in the medical world, in the science world, in advancements for diagnosis and treatment of Alzheimer's. But if you're in the middle of taking care of someone with Alzheimer's, I want you to know that you're not alone and that there are support groups and a community just waiting for you to get involved. And I want you to know to take care of yourself. If there's anything else that you hear from this podcast is take care of you so that you can take care of your loved one. Enjoy the show. Hi, I'm Carrie Watts with the Saved and Strong podcast. I have two special guests with me today, my own sister, Bobbi Ford, and we have Kendall Boulton with us today. Kendall serves as the development manager for the Alzheimer's Association of Mississippi. In her role, she works closely with the volunteers, donors, corporate partners, and community leaders to advance the association's mission of ending Alzheimer's while supporting those affected by the disease. Kendall, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having us.
And then I also have my own sister. She's a retired RN at the Mississippi Baptist Medical Center. Bobbi's been retired now for a couple of years. She's a mom, she's a grandmom, and she's going to be here with me today to share about our experience taking care of our mom who passed away last May of Alzheimer's. And we're going to tell you a whole lot more about that in the minutes to come. So, Kendall, tell us a little bit more about June being Brain Health Awareness Month and what we have coming up.
Absolutely. So for June, as Carrie mentioned, is Brain Health and Awareness Month on taking charge of your brain health. We're really at a turning point with Alzheimer's and brain health right now. 2/3 of Americans have at least one risk of developing dementia. Scientists are showing us that adopting healthy habits is what's important about brain health right now, whether that's a healthy diet or getting enough sleep or getting enough exercise. It's so important to get all of those things in every day to help with your cognitive decline and dementia. Hopefully, eventually, we will have a world without Alzheimer's and dementia. So right now, with the early detection of Alzheimer's, there's so many treatments that can slow the disease progress. And I'm sure Carrie and Bobbi, y'all can also speak on this as well. But there's infusions and there's different medications that can treat this disease and limit the symptoms of it. I'm the walk manager for Mississippi, for Central Mississippi, North Mississippi, and East Mississippi. We are working very hard to secure some sponsorships, to secure some partnerships for people that believe in our mission and know what we're doing is impactful. Like, for example, our big event we have on November 7th is our walk in Jackson. We have some incredible sponsors that believe in us, that are doing what they can to help. That day is going to be a really exciting day. We have a really impactful mission moment at the beginning where we'll hear about some people, how Alzheimer's has impacted their life. We'll start it out with a honor wall, a tribute wall, and you'll be able to let everybody know you're supporting someone with Alzheimer's, you're a caretaker, you have the disease, or if you've lost someone to the disease. The walk is about 2 miles. We have stops all over the place. We have a kids zone. We have a pet zone. Vendors that are out there to help where they can, to give you the resources that you need to move along the mission and get the support that you need. So something else that we're really working on is just the aspect of the working force, the early ages where you can get in front of it. We're really excited about our Brain Health at Work initiative that we launched in April, which is we can come into your office, we can take a day with your team, have an in-service day, and teach everybody about the steps, the early prevention steps, and about the things that they can get in front of with their brain health to make sure that they never get this diagnosis. We're always looking for volunteers that can help. We would not be able to do what we do without our volunteers. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without Bobbi and Carrie, who are here today, who are telling us everything that they can do on their side of it when they've seen it firsthand. That said, we're also looking for our advocates, who are also Bobbi and Carrie, who are doing what they can to let others know about their story and be there for people when they need it. And I really think there's even just little small things that you can do. Wearing purple and let everybody know I'm wearing purple to end Alzheimer's, like my shirt. We wear these all the time. We have so much research that's coming out, and there's so much to learn about the disease and so much that we can't wait for everybody to hear about and to know, and hopefully one day not have on Alzheimer's. Get involved where you can and show your support, and we appreciate it. No matter how big, how small, we're excited that you're here.
Yeah. And the walk is a beautiful day. Lots of tents, lots of balloons, lots of flowers, and lots of people. And so pray for good weather. That's what I say, because
Absolutely.
it is an exciting day. And you think, oh, but Alzheimer's is such a sad diagnosis. It is. But when you're with other people, when you're in community with other people who have cared for their parents or their loved ones with Alzheimer's, there's just a sweet connection there. And you're wanting to help one another. You're wanting to cheer one another on. So it does end up being a lively, festive event. It really does. And Kendall doesn't know I was going to ask her this, but do you have a family member, or have you cared for a family member or known a family member with dementia or Alzheimer's?
I have a great aunt that has it, and then my stepmom or my stepdad's mom just recently passed away with it. I've never had to be a caretaker, fortunately, but I do feel for everybody that has, and I'm here to support however I can.
Well, we thank you for the work that you are doing for
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah, thank you so much. And now I'm going to turn the show to Bobbi. We're going to share about our experience taking care of our own mom. I did want to add to Bobbi's biography that she does enjoy serving with the youth at Pine Lake Church. She loves gardening, traveling, and maintaining a healthy lifestyle focused on brain health. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So, Bobbi, I'm going to start with a question that I didn't have in our discussion questions. But what have
Okay.
you been doing to take care of your brain health? Share that with our audience.
Okay. Thank you. Well, off and on all my life, I've struggled, since I've had my children with just being a little overweight. And when I retired, Carrie kept encouraging me little by little to let's join the Y. I'm a member of the Y. If you join the Y, we can start small. So I did join back in the fall of last year and started with water aerobics. With after having 2 knee surgeries, it was like I was set free in the water. I could jump, I can move, I can dance, everything I like to do. I was very active growing up in sports. And so I started that 3 to 4 days a week. And then I ventured into the gym at the Y, and I'm happy to report I've lost 30 pounds. But more than the weight, it's just, I honestly feel as if my thoughts are more clear. Of course, I've modified my diet. A lot of this was selfishness. I do not want to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's, dementia. If I do, I want to push it as far away as I can. So a lot of it is for my brain health, just doing a lot of research, working with Kendall and Jennifer and Blair. As far as the advocacy end of Alzheimer's, just learning more, going to conferences, honestly, your diet and exercise and other things like cognitive, just being social, any kind of strategies, games, anything like that to keep your mind alert.
Yes,
So
thank you for sharing. I know Bobbi said they found a new game. Uno, what?
Uno on steroids. It's very fun, and so we just laughing, talking, screaming.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Playing games with the family. That's so
right.
fun. And I will, my mom's not here to tell about herself. And so I just wanted to tell a little bit about my mom. Our mom was very creative. She was an artist by nature. She loved to paint. She loved to create. She loved to sew. And She was very carefree. I mean, we always had a lot of people in and out of the house. There were 5 of us kids, and she did not mind people showing up for dinner unexpected. That did not seem to faze her one bit. She was very involved in our church. She loved missions. She loved traveling as well. And so our mom was very active. She was not sedentary, I would say, until she got Alzheimer's, and that's when she started sitting more. She and my dad were retired by the time that she was diagnosed. Bobbi, when was the first time that you noticed something wasn't quite right with mom's memory?
Well, probably in her 60s, to be honest. She was not formally diagnosed until early 70s. Probably 10, I would venture to say 15 years prior to that, she would forget things. I remember being with her and registering Carrie for school, and they needed her birth date and she hesitated. Not having the realization, oh, something's wrong, I just chalked it up to she had 5 children and a very busy life. And like Carrie said, she was always doing things for our community, our church, our neighborhood. And I just said, well, she has so much going on, you're going to forget things. Probably one of the saddest days was all of us had gone out to eat. We were at the Mexican restaurant, and she called. She knew my cell phone. And again, this was probably late 60s, early 70s. And I told her which one. And she had to stop and call 2 or 3 different times because it was only a couple of miles from her house, and she could not remember how to get to that particular restaurant. So that was a very sad day for me. It was like, something's happening here.
Right, right. And we had a few of those experiences. Mine was my youngest child, Foster, was like 3 or 4, and I was homeschooling the other boys. So mom would come pick up Foster, and they'd go to library day, and they'd go to lunch, and they'd go shop. Well, she loved those days. She loved her grandbabies. She loved kids. And there were a couple of times she didn't show up, and I just was like, "Mom, did you forget library day?" And she would just laugh, and she'd say, "Oh, yeah, we'll go again next week." And she'd kind of brush it off. But she started forgetting like usernames and passwords, just things just everyday things that would normally come easy to her. She started forgetting. And so I called my friend who was working at St. Catherine's Village, still works there. And I asked her what I should do. I said, I think mom's starting to forget. And she said, call the Mind Center because they were new at the time. And so we called the Mind Center and got her an appointment. But one thing that Lisa told me, she said, always find the joy. And she said, Carrie, it can be very sad, but you you got to laugh. Sometimes you can't just cry all the time. And mom was full of joy most of the time. And so we knew that something was different when she started getting a little more anxious and she went through an angry stage. Now, the more families that I talk to who work with Alzheimer's patients, not all of them go through the angry stage, but some do. And it is a very difficult time because usually it's the patients who are always positive who end up in that angry stage, and family members are not used to seeing their parent especially turn from that kind, compassionate, fun-loving person to that angry person. So that was very difficult for us to see, but those are some of the earliest signs and symptoms that concerned us, and we immediately as nurses wanted to get her care. We knew there has to be something. But what was most disappointing, I think, was when we took mom to her primary care physician and he really didn't know what to do. So we were so thankful for the Mind Center. Bobbi, how would you describe our family's reaction when mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease?
Well, initially, we were not surprised, to be honest. I think we were stunned. We were honestly like, no, this cannot be happening. I think once we got past that, we were just, as Carrie said, being in the healthcare field, it was like, okay, let us arm ourselves with knowledge. What do we need to do next? I am a very type A personality. Let's figure out what can be done and let's get to it. And so that kind of started our journey with finding experts in the area that could help us.
Yeah. What I was most impressed with at the Mind Center is Dr. Gibson. Dr. Scott Gibson was mom's doctor, and he immediately assessed her not only cognitively, but also Center for Blood Work, urinalysis. So inside and out, he was assessing her. And our first visit was hours long. I don't remember exactly. It was half a day at least. The advantage that Bobbi and I had was our dad was still alive and he was very sharp. In fact, they used to camp, I would say, at least a quarter of the year. And so he was just ready to load the camper and keep going. But what we learned from going to support group meetings, which is also something that the Mind Center actually provides, is support group meetings with their social worker. And what we learned through those is the sundowner syndrome. I'd never heard of that, but it's when the shadows start shifting at sunset that makes them very anxious. And so what they need most is normalcy. They need to be like in the same house with the same room, the same bedding, the same curtains, everything the same people, because anything that changes drastically can set them off too. That can trigger that anxiety. And so what we told our dad was, we think it's probably best for y'all not to travel anymore because when she's in a different place, that's going to set her off. And my dad, who was in denial that they needed to change their lifestyle at all, took her to like Wyoming. And they were gone for a couple of weeks, and he purposely shut the phone off. He didn't want to be found. And Bobbi and I were we were calling every campground from Wyoming back to Mississippi trying to find them after 2 weeks. And we finally found them, and we were like, "Please come home." And he pretty much parked the camper after that. I don't know what happened on that camping trip, but he parked the camper. But so yes, I want to ask you another question, Bobbi. What do you wish someone had told us at the beginning?
This is going to seem simple. The first is don't ask a direct question. The second is, don't correct. And then the third thing is just lean in and listen to the person that is diagnosed with dementia, a form of dementia, in particular Alzheimer's. You can learn a lot. And of course, again, with my personality, it's like, no, we've got to get on this. We've got to fix it. That's really something that I'm going to be honest, it took a while. I would probably say 2 or 3 years for me to just get okay with that. And I think once we quit correcting her for telling us something more than 5 or 6 times, honestly, my dad in public would be embarrassed and he would correct her. But I think once we all got that, just let her be. Try to avoid things that might trigger them. And I can distinctly remember asking her something before we got a diagnosis. And we were standing in her driveway, and I was like, "Mom, you have got to remember this." It's like, I had to know. And she just bust out crying. She said, I can't remember. And so I digress a little bit, but that memory popped up. But I think that's the main thing, just be with them. Just listen to them. Try not to ask them anything direct that may embarrass them because they may know at that moment, and then they may not have that memory or how to answer you.
Yeah. And for anybody who's not had a family member with dementia or Alzheimer's, typically their short term memory goes first. So anything that happened a minute ago, 5 minutes ago, a day ago, that's what goes first. They're not going to remember that. So, like Bobbi said, if somebody comes out of surgery and they're confused, you bring them back to reality. If a young person's had a concussion and they don't remember something, you bring them back to reality. We learned that in nursing school. But if somebody has Alzheimer's or dementia and they are confused about something, sometimes you just got to let that roll. because they're not going to remember in the next several moments or even tomorrow that they had that conversation with you. And so, what I remember from one of our first support group meetings is one of the women was taking care of her mom, and her dad had died 11 years prior. But like every day, her mom would say, "Where's dad?" And she learned not to say he died, Mama, he died, because then her mom was having to re grieve her husband's death. So she was like, "He's at the store. He'll be back later." That's the only time you can get away with lying to your parents is when it comes to like dementia and Alzheimer's and they can't remember something. And if it's something that's going to make them regress or go back into grief or back into confusion and anger, then you just let it go. That's what we had to do with mom is just let her believe whatever she wanted to believe that day because it was going to be different tomorrow. But she could remember us. She never forgot us. And that was a huge blessing because we were all like, I wonder when's the day she's not going to remember us. And oh boy, she remembered us a lot. Like she would call us hundreds of times a day. Hundreds of times a day. It got to where I felt guilty for ignoring her phone calls, but we would have never gotten anything done if we answered every one of her phone calls and had that same conversation over and over and over again. And it was almost a relief when she forgot to call us. And that was kind of the last year of her life. She fought dying tooth and nail. Her body stayed as healthy as it could. It was her brain, but with Alzheimer's, your body eventually forgets what to do. Your legs forget to walk. All your systems, if you know all your systems, they start to shut down. And so and that's hard to watch, but she literally took her last dying breath trying hard to stay here, hard as she could. If you've never seen somebody go through a full life, it is amazing to watch. It's amazing. But okay, not to jump forward, but
Okay.
caring for her, thank goodness dad did take care of her. Now they were of the generation that did not want help. If Bobbi and I hired somebody to help them clean, cook, or just a sitter, there was no respite care. My dad took his vows very seriously, and he was going to take care of her until he couldn't take care of her anymore. And he ended up having 2 heart attacks as a result of the stress of taking care of her 3 years before he died. So his second heart attack, they intubated him. They did full on CPR. And when they extubated him, he asked me why I let them save him. And I said, because we need you here to take care of mom. And he was like, "Well, I'm ready to go whenever." But so 3 years later, he had a brainstem stroke and passed away. So Bobbi and I tried to take care of mom, but we were going to pay as much for full-time care so that we could live our lives as we were putting her into an assisted living. And so we put her into an assisted living. She stayed in assisted living for 2 years, even with Alzheimer's. And then we moved her to memory care, the last year of her life. And it was 10 minutes from our homes, and so we could zip up there and see her at any time, and I just want to say you are always your parents' advocate, even when they're in assisted living or memory care. They can't do it all. They can feed them, they can give them their meds, they can put an eye on them and call you every now and then, but visitations, I think, are very necessary, if not every day, every 2 or 3 days. And we were there. We were there a lot. So what I appreciated about having Bobbi is even though she was like, "Okay, I'll take care of her banking and her legal stuff," and I was like, "Okay, I'll take care of giving her a shower and her medical care." Like, that way, we knew those things were being taken care of, but we never could travel together. So, like, if I went out of town, Bobbi took care of the medical and the showers, right? Or if Bobbi went out of town, no, I never did legal or banking. I didn't want to do any of that. Thanks,
She
sis.
could have.
But I really do. I have a heart for people that don't have a sister or a sibling to help with those responsibilities because it's a lot to think of, to consider. Thank goodness my mom and dad did have a will and a trust. But as you will find out when one parent passes away, it's like pulling my teeth to get all that to fruition and taken care of. And it takes money. It takes a lot of money to take care of a parent. And I think that's probably the driving factor behind, I know myself being an advocate and probably Bobbi too, is it takes so much time, energy, and financial burden to take care of a parent. And so, what we want our audience to hear is it's not impossible. There are resources out there, and go to the Alzheimer's website. The Alzheimer's Association has an excellent website. Your community has resources. You're not alone. If you hear anything in this podcast, you are not alone. It is,
Amen.
yeah, it is. It ain't easy. So just don't try to do it on your own. Okay, back to our interview. What do you think are some of the misconceptions that we had about Alzheimer's before becoming a caregiver?
I I honestly thought doom and gloom, to be honest, but there are stages, and they're not clear and they're not textbook from person to person. Most of us in this day and age, you get something, how can we fix it? And with Alzheimer's and dementia, it may present in different ways to different people. It's not doom and gloom. Thank you for mentioning the Alzheimer's .org. That is probably one of your best resources. You ask and they will point you in the right direction and help you with that. When it escalates, it could happen sooner and faster. With my mom, she plateaued for a long time. But with the help of the Alzheimer's Association, the Mind Center, Dr. Gibson, the support group, and the different things that Carrie and I had no problem reaching out to, even though they had the will and all, just getting things lined up, having a plan, because it brings some peace of mind when things start happening quickly. If you're a member of a church, just using some of those members to help give respite care. I guess to say that that person is still that person. Help them with doing those things that they enjoyed. My mom, for example, was an artist. She loved to paint. She loved to draw. She loved her children and her grandchildren. So helping them continue to do those things that they've always enjoyed helps you continue to have some sense of normalcy for them as well as yourself, because you get joy, as Carrie stated, watching them be joyful.
Yes. Yes. And they say that the creative part of the brain is the last to go. At assisted living, mom would go to the art and color and paint. And she seemed to enjoy that. You know, she would say she didn't want to go, but once she went, she seemed to really enjoy it. And she always had something up on her wall that she had created or painted or colored. And she liked doing that. Like, I made that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
The Alzheimer's Association also has a 24/7, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day hotline that you can call. If you feel like if you're just overwhelmed as a caretaker and you need somebody to just talk to about it and say, please just listen to me rant, that's what they're there for. If you need advice on what your family member is acting this way, how would you go about the situation? If you need advice on what to do, how you feel like you want to do something, but you don't know how to help, that's what they're there for. Please utilize it. People are there every day to help you and to get you what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that. I would have blown up that line, girl. That's awesome. That's
No,
good. That's good to know. And
absolutely.
Bobbi mentioned those stages, the early, middle, and late stages. One thing that we were given at the support group meeting that we went to for the first time was they gave us a book on Alzheimer's. And I kept it in my bedside table and I referred to it all the time because I would think, okay, she's in the early stages. When is she going to move to the middle stages? When is she going to move to the late stages? To me, Alzheimer's is the hardest grief to endure because your parent is dying like a day at a time, and you never know what the next day is going to bring. And for our mom, it was her medications. You know, you would think, oh, just put them in a pill box and she'll know, okay, I took my medications Monday. Well, they don't remember what day of the week it is. So she would take Wednesday's medicine on Monday and not even know the difference. She would overdose on like her medicine that for blood pressure and cholesterol just because she didn't know she had already taken it. But everything is escalated with Alzheimer's and dementia. Like she was always in pain because she had 5 kids. She had a lot of bone density problems and arthritis. And so pain became a big issue for her because she would forget that she took her pain medicine, but she would forget that she wasn't in pain either. She was just so used to being in pain that she would just beg for that pain medicine all the time. And my mom was not a drug addict. I mean, our mom was like, didn't do drugs. In fact, she preached against it. But you would have thought she was a druggie with Alzheimer's because she's like, I need that pain medicine. I need that pain medicine all the time. So there's just things, there's just changes. And you have to remind yourself, that's not really my mom. That's a disease that's taken over my mom's brain. And so it helps you to have more patience and compassion towards them when you can remember this is not her or him acting out this way. This is my mom with Alzheimer's or dementia. So, so what is something that people don't understand about being a caregiver? As a caregiver, what advice that we haven't given already could we give them?
I think as a caregiver, initially, hopefully, prayerfully, you have a sibling or two. I couldn't have made it without Carrie. I will say that. And us being in the healthcare business and women, we knew that it was going to fall on us. So Carrie and I quickly kind of divided and conquered as far as some of the things that she began needing help with. Hygiene. If you listen to this and you've got a loved one with Alzheimer's, she always bathed every day. She didn't wear a lot of makeup, but she would always get dressed for the day. And when she quit caring about that she has not had a shower in a couple of days, that mortified me. And so I was working full time. Carrie was very busy with 3 young boys, but thankfully, she took that on. She said, I got her. If you need help, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think Kendall has said it. Carrie has said it. You're not in this alone. You feel like you're in this alone. I've recently talked, and I don't think she would mind me saying it, but she actually works with Michael Guest. And I went to speak to their office, and she followed me to my car, and she says, my mother-in-law has it, and my husband has mild cognitive impairment. And other than work, that's my life. My husband and I can't even leave my mother-in-law. Kept looking at her saying, you have to have some time to yourself. If you don't, you will get burned out, and then you're not going to be good to anyone, especially your loved one that is living with Alzheimer's. I don't know. Carrie, you got anything to add to that?
Well, I will say, like Bobbi said earlier, don't argue with them. Like when my mom said, I'm not getting a shower today, I would just remember what Lisa told me and say, find the joy. And I would say, Mom, you don't like to stink and you stink. And she would start laughing and she'd be like, you're right. I don't really like to stink. And I would say, and you love for me to rub your back in the shower. And I'm going to give you a nice long back rub. So as long as I could like lighten the situation up, make it all about her and less about me, even though I wanted it to be all about me, then you can persuade them. Don't be afraid of them. They are like children. It's true that we become more like children. And it's just like when your kids say, I don't want to get a bath, and you're like, well, I'm sorry, we do this every day. So, you want to say, suck it up, buttercup, but you can't because it's your mom or your dad or your grandparents and you want to honor them. But as much as you can, just lighten the situation up. I remember when Mom was in memory care and I went to give her a shower and all the ladies were in their little dining area having a glass of water, but that was their happy hour. And in their minds, they were having wine hour and they were drinking wine and they were laughing and they were telling stories. And one of the ladies looked at me and held her glass up. She said, I'll have another glass of wine. And it was just so fun. It reminded me of a bunch of little girls sitting around the table having a tea party. And I was like, they're just having their tea party. They're just having their wine party. And I love assisted living for that fact is they are okay with doing that. And if your parent is at home alone, they're just thinking about what they're not getting to do. And assisted living is like middle school for a lot of those ladies and guys, but it can be catty. Like they don't want to sit with each other at a certain table, but it can be fun too. You just kind of have to roll with it. Nobody ever prepares you for it. There's just chapters in life that nobody ever prepares you for. I remember becoming a parent going, there's no class for this. Why didn't anybody ever teach me how to be a mom? And when my mom became to a point where we had to take care of her, I thought the same thing. I was like, nobody ever prepared me for this. But thank goodness we have the Alzheimer's Association.
Yes.
So I want to get to the sad part because we have to talk about the sad part. What was the hardest part of like really not the end, but from the beginning diagnosis to the end? What was the hardest goodbye? Because it was all the time. It was like, losing that mom. Like, okay, I'll share this story so we can
All
like.
right, you go ahead because I'm trying not to cry.
So when my mom first was diagnosed and she wanted to shop all the time. So one of her other favorite pastimes was shopping. Well, she got to where she would buy the same thing over and over and over again. She loved order catalogs where she could order blankets and cups and just crap. It was just like stuff, just junk. And my dad, bless his heart, he got tired of telling her no. And so he would just let her order all this stuff. They had boxes and boxes and boxes of the same stuff. And so I found her at Kroger one day because we all shopped at the same Kroger. She had somebody else's cart. She had abandoned her cart, grabbed somebody else's cart, and was in line, and it had been scanned, and it was time to pay. She didn't even have a purse with her. And I happened to show up behind her, and I just gave him my credit card. And I was like, here, I don't care. And I was like, Mom, I don't know whose cart this is. We're going to get you home. And so, they're going to do stuff like that. And what do? You're not going to know that they've done that a lot of times. Like Bobbi said, Mom would get in the car and she wouldn't know where she was going. So that was another resource that we used at the Mind Center is we asked the doctor to tell her that she didn't need to carry a purse anymore. She didn't need to spend any more money and she didn't need to drive anymore, that we were going to let Dad do all that for her. Instead of it being a negative, oh my goodness, look what you've done. It was, you know what, this is for your safety and for your health. You're not going to do these things anymore. And so just be prepared that those things are going to happen. And you don't know when to take the license away. And you don't know when to take the checkbook away or the purse. But it's a control issue because they've been an adult for a long time, more than half of their life. And then all of a sudden they're having to have things taken away. So those were the kind of goodbyes for me that were hard. So what were some of the goodbyes for you, Bobbi?
A lot of those things that you just mentioned, what I saw was she just slowly retreated. When I say she was probably to this day, next to Carrie, one of the most social people I've ever come in contact with. We had the type neighborhood where the back door was always open. There was always ladies from the neighborhood in our kitchen all times of the day, chit-chatting with my mom. There was always 5 or 6 extra children there. So when I saw her sleeping more, when I would stop by after work, her not initiating the conversations as much. We always had like Thanksgiving, Christmas, all birthday parties at her house. But when she just couldn't do those things anymore, or she would be adamant that she was going to host, and then you would get there and you would see that she had not even started to attempt to organize. She was so outgoing and she just her mind, she couldn't do it. She couldn't keep up. That was really hard for me. That was really sad.
Yeah. And one of the things that happened with Mom is anything that she saw on the news was happening to her.
Yeah.
And I won't go into any details, but a lot of the politics you can imagine just sent her into a tailspin. And so we had to like stop watching the news. If we played Elvis, she 100% got in a good mood because those were good memories for her. That was a good time in her life. And so a lot of times I would just either play hymns from church that she remembered or Elvis. And it would kind of calm her down. More about advocacy and awareness. What are some ways that communities and churches can help families or caregivers helping someone with Alzheimer's or dementia?
Most people have the best intention. Just say, "Can I come by and sit with your mother, your dad, your sister, whoever may have the diagnosis, or take them a meal, or just do something nice for that person that tells you no to all those above. Do something for them. Cook them a meal. If possible, surround yourself with a community. If you're not involved, let others do for you. But as Kendall said, there is this line, this helpline, and there are physical groups, and or there may be an online group. If you were like me, you were working 40 plus hours a week, and it was hard to get to support groups. It's vital for your self-care. For advocacy, I think what I would do is arm yourself with knowledge. There is hope. The science is there. We now have a screening blood test, and if it does detect, yes, you're a high candidate to have dementia, Alzheimer's, then you can do a second test. You can do a biomarker test, and there are medications out there. Advocate for your loved one. They cannot, or they will not if they're in the early stages. So be with them, and if one provider tells you something, you may have to go to someone else. My place being second to the oldest, and yet knowing that I was going to, after my father passed away, as Carrie stated, the hardest part about navigating anything legal was my mother was still alive. So going to her provider and saying, I can't do anything, because, of course, she was fighting us tooth and nail. She couldn't remain at home, and one of us be over there with her every day. And that was it. That was the end of the story. So as hard as it was, we had to get letters of incapacity and still let her be very involved in decisions, but just to navigate, her expenses and things like that.
So, one thing I can say is that a lot of people think that an Alzheimer's or dementia diagnosis has to be a secret. They don't want to
Yeah,
call other people. They don't want to
good
let
point.
people know that that's what they're going through. It's so important to be able to advocate for those people. Let them know that you're like Bobbi was saying, let somebody know that you're there for them. Do things without them having to ask, but also it's more just even when you go into the doctor's office, obviously you're not going to keep that secret from your doctor, but whenever you go in and you say, or if you're going in with a spouse or a family member and you say, I've noticed this, this, and this about my loved one, this is what's going on. Starting July 1st, Jill's Law is approved, which you can, how Bobbi was talking about the biomarker test, you can go in under a private insurance or under Medicaid and tell your doctor that you had these experiences with a loved one, that you've noticed these symptoms, and you can get a screening paid by insurance to know if you even carry a gene for Alzheimer's. So that way you can find out 20 years before a diagnosis if you have it. And that way you can say, okay, I'm going to get ahead of this. I don't want to put this on my family 20 years from now. I want to be able to get all my ducks in a row and have a will and have an estate plan.
Yeah.
Something along the lines of let people take care of you, let people embrace what's being offered and be that support person when somebody needs it, but also don't be afraid to ask for the help yourself.
Yeah. So
Advocate for
true.
yourself as well for other people.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Good point.
No doubt. Yes. And Bobbi and I went to Washington, D.C. with AIM, Alzheimer's Impact Movement. We were able to talk to our representatives and congressmen about the ASAP and the ADAP Act. Just know that the Alzheimer's Association is moving forward at all times. on behalf of families and patients that have Alzheimer's and dementia, because our goal one day is that Alzheimer's will be cured and we won't have to deal with this anymore. But in the meantime, it is a lot, and we want our listeners to hear that you're not alone. So, our lawmakers, we are making them aware of all the most current medical technology that is out there, that, like you said, the biomarkers. We would love for that blood test to be common, like getting our cholesterol checked. Let's get our biomarkers checked. That would be awesome.
A lot of our people are saying that this is our mammogram moment. 30 years ago, it wasn't common for you to get a mammogram yearly like you do now. But in 30 years, it's going to be the same way. We're going to be able to say, that's crazy that wasn't able to be tested so early on, and that we were able to get ahead of it so early on versus when we're at end stages or middle stages that we are now. But
Right.
there's so much going on and so much science behind it that can't even keep up with it right now. It's so incredible. But it's just incredible.
I think if Mom could talk to us today, that she would just say, job well done. Way to go, girls. Like, she raised us right, because
Totally agree.
we took good care of her. And so what I would just say is, honor your parent, honor your grandparent, take good care of them, do what they want to do. I have a friend who does facials, and her dad has dementia, Alzheimer's, and she gave her dad a facial for Father's Day. And then she videoed him, and he was like, that felt so good.
How
And,
sweet.
her mom has talked to me about her dad, because she knows that I love to advocate for Alzheimer's. And that's what she said. She said he is in his best mood when he is with her, with his daughter. And so, and she does take advantage of respite care, but whoever those people are that your loved one loves to be around, get them around those people, as much as possible. A lot of the older people, especially the women, they love to hold a baby doll, because they have
Yeah.
such great memories of being with their children, being a mom for the first time. But one thing what we had to do when we did take Mom to assisted living and to memory care, is, as much as we wanted to get her all new stuff for her room, is we kept all the old stuff, the old bedding, the old pictures on the wall, her furniture, as much as we could get in there, we got in there. And that helped with the transition. So, as much as you may want to get them new things, try to keep things the same as much as possible. One of the greatest lessons my mom taught us is, it's don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. And it can seem like a really catastrophic, tragic time in your life. But just to remember to take one day at a time is what I would tell you. Don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough troubles of its own. And is there anything else that y'all would like to say, that if there's one lesson that you've learned through either helping Mom or helping others with Alzheimer's, what would that lesson be?
And I put my glasses on because I put a lot of thought in this question. So I promise I've done so good not to cry to this point. But I think if she was sitting here, she would tell us, especially anybody else living with Alzheimer's, she would look at them and say, it changed my brain. But inside, I was the same person. And love is bigger than memories. Your loved one may not remember certain things, but the love is there, and your loved one living with Alzheimer's will feel that love. Just continue to love them through it when it's hard. Step away, do your self-care, and go back. Show them dignity, respect, and patience, and just be with them. I can remember those last few months thinking, okay, I'm going to just sit here with her. We would talk, and then she would just slowly close her eyes, and she would nap. But I would not take those memories away for anything. And because she felt it now, I would leave, and in 5 minutes, sometimes was not even in my car yet, she would call and say, are you going to come see me today? And I would say, yeah, Mom, I'm running some errands and I'll come by. But I think that's what if she was here today, she would tell us, thank you Thank you for not abandoning me because, as Kendall said, for some families, it's still kind of a stigma. I can remember being a little girl and having different friends, parents, or family member get cancer, and they may or may not talk about it. And I think that's the way Alzheimer's and dementia has been. I think it's getting better with things like this. Thank you for Carrie for having Kendall and I, to bring awareness. So yeah, just don't forget that's the same person, even though their mind may not be as sharp as it was.
Yeah. If you know of anybody that's dealing with Alzheimer's or caring for somebody with Alzheimer's disease, let them know about this podcast. Let them know about the Alzheimer's Association because we have a great Alzheimer's Association of Mississippi. And I know every other state does too, because when Bobbi and I were in DC, they were well represented. We were in a big conference room and every state was represented. And you would be very proud of the Alzheimer's Association for representing us well in DC to all of your representatives, congressmen, all the way up. And they were very welcoming of what we had to say. And they heard us out. And that was very encouraging to see and to hear. I'm going to put all of Kendall's and Bobbi's links in the show notes, as well as mine if you want to reach out to us if you have any questions. And get signed up for the Alzheimer's Walk and bring your friends. It's really a fun time. It really is. Kendall, is there anything
Absolutely.
else that you want to say?
I would just say do what you can to make yourself feel better. Even if you are not someone with the disease, with dementia, with Alzheimer's, do what you can that makes you feel like you're doing something. Whether that be you go to a support group, whether that be you come to our walk and join 1,000 other people who are dealing with the same thing that you are, whether that's you feel like you want to have a mahjong competition, anything like that. We can do anything with anything. So we can make whatever impact you want. If you want to make an impact, you will make one, is basically what I'm trying to
Yep.
say.
Reach out to one of us and we'll make sure that you get in contact. Some of you like to do fun things. If you have a membership at a gym and you want to do a competition and to raise support for Alzheimer's, if you like policy, you go to the website. We need all the help and volunteers we can to end Alzheimer's. How awesome would that be? A world without Alzheimer's. Yay!
Yes. Take care of your
Absolutely.
brain, friends.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Carrie.
Have a good day. And I'll have everything in the show notes and y'all take care of your brain.